The focus class was first conceived of when Mary Loretta and I took students to Russia in the 1990s. We noticed how insufficient the American students' preparation was, not only linguistically but also in terms of general cross-cultural skills. When we started working at Washington University, we thought it might be a good idea to teach a class that would combine academic content with the practice of intercultural skills. The late Dean Jim McLeod, who was at that time Mary's boss in the College of Arts and Sciences, really liked this idea, and he suggested to develop a class in the Washington University Freshman Focus Program. Focus classes are 1-year-long freshman seminars about a specific topic. They have topics like Irish history, Cuba, and others. So soon thereafter, in the academic year of 2002-2003, the focus class Global Culture and the Individual was born. In terms of what the content of the class would be, we decided to focus on the inherent connection between intercultural skills and traditional humanities classes, literature classes to be precise. The idea was that reading a book is like entering a different culture. You need to develop a high level of awareness in order to begin to understand the world of the book. So the connection between literature, or more generally, the humanities and intercultural skills, is the conceptual foundation for our focus class. But on the other hand, we also strived from the very beginning to be truly interdisciplinary. That means no topic was really beyond the reach of the class, simply because everything can be related to culture and cultures. In this context, the practice of dialogue emerged as a central piece. The class became a place where learning came from the interaction between everyone involved, students, teachers, guests, as opposed to a class in which the teacher is supposed to have all the answers and the students are going to be tested at the end in a final and to see whether they get it right or wrong. At the beginning, we did not go to Georgia. Georgia, Azerbaijan, and finally also Armenia became part of the class only after a few years. The idea behind going to the South Caucasus was after a full year of classroom studies to take a trip which allows the students to practice what they've learned in real-life situations. This approach worked really well, and the South Caucasus proved to be an ideal place to practice intercultural skills for American students. Why was that the case? I believe that the South Caucasus is just different and strange enough to allow an American student to feel very clearly that he or she is not in the U.S. anymore. Like Dorothy says in The Wizard of Oz, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore. On the other hand, the South Caucasus is not so strange that the students would have serious difficulties to adjust mentally and psychologically. The Russian psychologist Lev Vygotsky used the term zone of proximal development, ZPD, which according to him was the space in which learning most effectively happens. If a person is in the ZPD, he or she is sufficiently stimulated to learn something new, but the learning is not too far away from the things he or she already knows. To us, Georgia and the other two countries in the South Caucasus were an ideal zone of proximal development for intercultural learning. I'm sure there are other places on this planet that can function in this way, but the South Caucasus has worked very well for us. It is hard for me to judge what kind of transformation students went through during or after the class. Many of them, particularly students who came to the South Caucasus with us, reported to have life-changing experiences. I think it comes down to a very basic transformation that can be described as opening the mind. It is a good and important thing for a young adult to challenge his or her worldview thoroughly and review its specific ingredients. Such a process allows them to decide which parts of their worldview are worth keeping and which parts should be discarded or at least modified. One of the great experiences of the class was the fact that not only our American students experienced this kind of opening of the mind, but also the Georgians who we visited, and particularly the Georgians that then had the opportunity to visit us here in St. Louis. I still remember one time on the bus returning from Svaneti, one of the IPSU students said to me, "You know, Dr. Faust, I'm starting to look at Georgia in a completely different way after spending this time with Americans visiting our country. All of you have taught me to look at my own country from a new perspective." So starting in 2009, we had the opportunity to create a true exchange program. A small number of Georgian students from the International Black Sea University has had the opportunity to come to St. Louis for a visit. This was particularly important for us. These Georgian students themselves had important eye-opening experiences, being able to participate in the life of their Washington University peers for a couple of weeks, going to classes, including the focus class, etc. Again, one factor was very important here. Not only did the visiting Georgian students learn a lot, but so did the Americans interacting with them here, most of whom weren't even able to find Georgia on a map before meeting our guests. The fact that some of the students were able to meet both in the U.S. and in Georgia was pedagogically extremely valuable. In my view, this program is in many ways a model for global education. Well, at the beginning we weren't really sure if what we were doing was working or not. The biggest problem, in my view, was contemporary U.S. culture has developed to a point where in the world of students coming to college, particularly to an elite college like Washington University, everything has to be awesome, great, perfect. This attitude led to a culture clash with what we were trying to do from the very beginning. Because if you truly reflect about yourself, your culture, and your environment, it is simply not possible that everything is awesome. You have to look at the darker sides as well, including the darker sides of yourself. Freshmen in U.S. colleges are, in my experience, not well prepared for this type of reflection. So for many of our students, this culture clash led to a real shock. And this meant a big challenge for us teaching the class, because we had to try very hard to find a middle way between pushing the students to a point where they could be authentic and honest on the one hand, but without being too negative and discouraging on the other. There were clearly many times where I felt like giving up and deciding that this type of deeper cultural reflection is simply not possible in today's culture. Very often it felt like everything was working against us. And the fact that the class was eventually canceled might also have had to do with this reality. Overall, our current educational system, with its total emphasis on testing, standardization, grades, etc., misses a very important element, something that can be summed up by the term reflection. Most classes that people take at Washington University are based on the premise that the teacher knows what there is to learn about a topic. He or she teaches this content in the best way possible, and finally the students get a chance to prove that they have learned the material in a test. At most, I believe, this approach addresses only half of what education is really about. But there's also, in addition to that, the other side. There has to be an emphasis on personal development, on maturation, if you will, or on formation. It's what the Germans call Bildung. I think our class addressed this other half of education very well. Students need the type of reflection that we were doing in order to be truly creative, to make new connections, to develop as scholars, as scientists, and simply as human beings. First and foremost, the need is to restore the humanities in modern education and help them to find their proper place again. Personally, I would go as far as to say that the survival of humanity in the current ecological crisis is related to this issue. You could say no humanity without the humanities. Of course, I can't be totally sure about this, but this is what it looks like to me. The humanities, particularly if they are properly taught, are the perfect place to allow students to think about what they want to create in their lives. If this aspect is missing, then we live in a situation where our actions and behaviors are based on unreflected, often even totally unconscious assumptions. To me, it seems that human life will have to change substantially in the near future if our species wants to survive on this planet. What exactly has to change and how this change is supposed to happen? Those questions need to be thought about very carefully and very urgently at the same time. So, this is, I think, what our class made a small contribution to.
It started 5 years ago when Dr. Faust came to Georgia together with Professor Early and about 12 American students to select some four best students from Georgian universities. He came to International Black Sea University and selected four students from American Studies Department. But the project involved communicating with Georgian students in Signahi or Gudauri. So Dr. Faust took Georgian students who hosted American students. So we distributed American students among Georgian families. And this interchange lasted for 2 weeks. So the students spent time in Signahi and Gudauri first time. After this interchange, Dr. Faust and Dr. Early decided to select four best students who had great information about the United States. Um, English was up to the level of these students. So this was the first attempt. And since that time, every year, the project continued. So it involved invitation of four best students to Washington University in St. Louis for 3 weeks. The students attended lectures and prepared presentations. They were taken around the city. The students got wonderful hospitality there, and we are very happy that this project was initiated by Dr. Faust, and we hope it will last. Generally, every group, we sent about 14 students to the United States. All students were overwhelmed with happiness because they had great experience in Washington University, attending lectures, communicating with wonderful lecturers, students, and it was exchange of cultures. So this was intercultural cultural relationship that is so very important. So the students got knowledge from very good lectures, professional lectures, and at the same time they acquired a great number of American friends. As I mentioned, interaction among students of different culture is of paramount importance because you can't study many things about culture without visiting the country and interacting with representatives of this culture. So Georgian students got information about the United States and they had face-to-face communication with students and American students who were distributed among Georgian families came closer to Georgian culture, Georgian cuisine, Georgian traditions. They were exposed to Georgian sites, churches, ancient churches. So we felt that American students were very surprised about many things that they studied in Georgia. It was equally important for both sides, and there is one more thing. Besides being exposed to cultures, the Georgian students' level of English rose tremendously. And they told me that their fluency was much better after communicating with American students here in Georgia, and of course after returning from the United States. Especially, I want to underline one student, Salome Chorgolashvili, who was in the last group, and her English was much better. When she came back to Georgia and gave presentation at my class, I was just amazed. Her English was quite fluent. So this is also great benefit. And another benefit is that we started exchange program that is cultural and educational. But 2 years ago, we developed this program, this project, so that wonderful lecturer Shannon Koropchak from Washington University in St. Louis, yes, she expressed her willingness to conduct lectures on academic writing. Because academic writing is very difficult, even for American students, as far as I know, and of course it's very difficult for Georgian students. So Ms. Koropchak conducts lectures through Skype. Every second semester it starts. Once a week, the students communicate with her through internet. She gives assignment, they write essays, she corrects, and they have this kind of communication through Skype. Yes, this is actually distance learning, online lecture, and she comes to Georgia in May. Then she conducts a package, package program for 2 weeks. They write their exam, so this is a very fruitful activity, I must say. Even the lectures,
they have international certificates.
and they got international certificates on academic writing, and it's very important, and they are very happy. And besides, they learned so many things. It's a great opportunity. Even the lecturers expressed willingness to attend this kind of lectures when Shannon comes to Georgia. So I think this program is beneficial, and I'm praying that it goes on, because first of all, Dr. Faust is just a wonderful personality, just a valuable person, because it was his initiative. He's so kind. This was great initiative, and both sides benefited, I think. And this is a wonderful project, and I hope we will develop it further. Both sides are satisfied. I wish the number to increase of American students who come to Georgia, because every year I see American students in Tbilisi. Together with Dr. Faust, I feel excited. I'm very happy, and every year we expect American students, and I hope they won't stop coming to Georgia. And Georgian students are expecting this project to be continued even this year. I was asked by sophomores. They of course know about the project, and they are inquiring whether we'll have this opportunity or not. The best students are waiting. So I think this is a wonderful opportunity to develop friendship, not only among personalities, but between nations, because this promotes understanding. And understanding is the main source for establishing communication between nations and establishing peace globally, I think. So, yes, this is a wonderful opportunity because if you learn many things about other nations through books, it's a very good thing. But if you add practice and if you travel is the major component in studying culture. So I hope we will have another group of students, of American students in Georgia in May, and another group of Georgian students in the beginning of next year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
My name is Katie Ketevan Joania Tyson. Originally, I'm from Georgia. I was born and raised here. And 10 years ago, I married my American husband and we moved to the United States. I lived and studied there. I just graduated from Florida Gulf Coast University with a sociology degree. I thought a lot which profession to choose. My first profession is physical education teacher. So there I thought what actually I wanted to choose, and I always thought that I am interested in psychology. Because before I went to the United States, I had very interesting job here. I was a personal development trainer, and we founded non-formal educational center Sunny House. It's about trainings for young people, teenagers, about character building and what I call value education. So I always thought that this kind of practical psychology was my calling, but when I started researching which profession to choose, I discovered the most important thing for me is how people interact with each other, it's how societies are built. So as person who loves her country, my little Georgia, I wanted to find out why we Georgians have so many problems. So it was the main reason why I chose to become sociologist. Focus groups, as I understand, it's when students get together in non-academic setting, when it's not formal education, they just get together and they talk about different topics, mostly around multicultural education. It was part of our training, so I think that in world where everything is becoming global, where we don't have borders anymore, when we have global community, when you can communicate with anybody from anywhere, I think just assume that we can be born with knowledge of how to communicate, how to talk, how to overcome our cultural differences, our stereotypes, it's mistakes. So I think that any place, it will be called focus group or any other group where people get together, especially young people, when you actually build your character, it's important. In the United States, in my class, we had absolutely fantastic teacher, sociologist. I mean, she was absolutely amazing. And we didn't call it focus groups, but we talked about different issues. Only discussing things, you can actually see what you think about very difficult topics we usually avoid in normal life. Because I don't know, not too much in Georgia, but in United States, people have this, they call it political correctness. When you try not to say something, you can offend other person. So you just avoid things. You don't talk about things which can hurt others or question, same racism or how I feel about other people, other cultures. But then this resistance will build, and then we have violence, we have wars, and everything comes from misunderstanding. And I think that this issue is very important, especially for the generation who
Is growing up.
yes, 21st century, I hope that, maybe I'm idealistic, but I hope that one day we will grow up as humankind and we will understand that there's other ways to negotiate and talk and solve conflicts than just get guns and shoot each other. So I think that this kind of focus groups where young people can sit in non-formal setting this time. I'm stressing that because when you are, when professor stands in front of you and he asks questions and then he grades you, it's very different from informal communication, when people are equal, when you can ask any question and you don't have fear of answering whatever you think, and then you listen others, and then you see yourself in mirror. You know, it's process which goes for me into the spiral, and I wish in Georgian universities we will have as part of curriculum. I believe that it helps to character building. Yes, and I think that it shouldn't be just initiative of one professor or other. It should be mandatory that all young people and teenagers, students, especially in first 2 years of their studies, have that kind of experience.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I met the students of Focus class in May 2008 at International Black Sea University. At that time, I was a senior student, and I visited Washington University in St. Louis in winter, February 2009. I even traveled with those Americans to Ganja and Baku, and we had a very good time. I visited Washington University in St. Louis when I was a senior student at the Faculty of Humanities, Department of American Studies, International Black Sea University. I was so fascinated with the idea of being somewhere across the Atlantic Ocean in the country that I had been studying for almost 4 years. I felt very grateful to Focus program for the invitation and for the chance to finally step on the land of opportunities and be a part of American life I was watching in movies. During the 3 weeks of my visit to WashU, I attended lots of various classes, workshops, and seminars, but Focus class was something I would distinguish from all the other classes that I saw there. Dr. Faust and American students I met during the program of Global Studies, the Focus class, helped me experience all that I had learned at school and gain practical knowledge. The first time I attended the class, I was very surprised, as it represented such a diverse method of teaching and learning. The thing that makes Focus class different from others is that it encompasses things other classes do not. It gives you a chance to think, and most importantly, to think outside of the box. The exchange of cultures in practice, sharing real ideas in real time, is the core principle of the class. The video conferences we had with the students excited our willingness to meet each other in reality. Through active communication, both verbal and written at social networks and in real life, both in the States and in Georgia, I had a chance to get acquainted with the American lifestyle, their everyday life, both college and family life. By hosting each other in America and in Georgia, I have a lot of American friends now, and so do they. With the help of Focus class, I realized Americans are kind-hearted, friendly, open-minded, supportive, and very reliable people. This is something you cannot find in books. You have to feel it to believe it. Focus class and the students themselves taught me many things. I brought punctuality and the sense of being time conscientious to Georgia, which helped me to transform myself into a very organized person. The stereotypes that I had about Americans and American college life disappeared and changed into warm and nice memories of fruitful educational discussions and simple human friendship. The educational process I witnessed in the States inspired me to do more, and I set a goal to come back again as a student. And I did it. I was admitted to the master's program of the International Relations at Washington University. I think it is such a great opportunity for American students to stay in touch with the outside world, to continue the journey of focusing on their individuality in this diverse contemporary world, that it is vital for them to travel to Caucasus and places like ours to keep themselves aware of the unexpected and unforeseen and be ready for challenges in this world. Focus class serves as the fundamental principle for future success in modern diversity. It enables students to get ready for the difficulties they are later going to confront. That's why, in my opinion, it is taught at freshman level. I would definitely take this class if it were in Georgia, but unfortunately it is not. Such classes are vital for the personal development of newcomers at school. Finally, Focus class empowers and enriches every single student who has ever attended the class even once in their lives. It teaches you how to appreciate different cultures, ideas, opinions, and all the differences that we humans have. Focus class motivates to focus on yourself while always staying focused on the world around you at the same time. In today's business, the workforce diversity has moved from being a moral imperative to being a strategic imperative, as IBM director Ted Childs puts it. We all have to work with so many people from so many backgrounds. It is vital for Americans to go out there to experience the unique culture of Caucasus and stay focused not only on America, but the world around us.
Thank you very much, Kate.
In addition, I would like to say that I'm speaking on behalf of every single person who has been within this program and who has visited Washington University in St. Louis. We all have very kind and warm memories of the lectures we have visited, and we would like to thank all the professors who taught us during those short lectures, seminars, and workshops. If we ever have a chance to go there again, we would be very thankful, and we would like to emphasize again that the relationships that we have with those students, they are the most important that we could have ever taken from the lectures and from the connections.
So
And
the program meant a lot, yes?
yes, the program was
Georgian
very
students.
meaningful for everyone, for every single person, especially this class, because it makes you think, it makes you identify who you really are. It puts a very big emphasis on yourself.
So I've been asked to speak about the importance of the relationship between Georgia and the United States, but more specifically in this case, Washington University and International Black Sea University. Talking about the kinds of opportunities I feel it affords students. And I should explain that my experience in speaking about this comes from my work with a particular class that I designed, academic writing at International Black Sea University. This class is a partial long-distance course, and during the 3 months that we are long-distance, I lecture with the students once a week via Skype, and then each student is assigned a Washington University tutor, and they work with their tutor once a week, and so you have really good interaction between the undergraduate students at Washington University and the undergraduates in the class at International Black Sea University. And then at the end of this, there's a 1-month period where students are able to, when we finish the course, we go to Georgia, and 2 of the Washington University tutors come with me, and they get the opportunity to see Georgia and see International Black Sea University and see a different university setting. And then actually, of course, see and work with their students in person. And what I would say that I've learned in the 3 years that I've been doing this, I think what I see happening most with students is rethinking what they understand about education. They realize that education is a very cultural concept. Most of the students who come into the program as tutors at Washington University are interested in education. They're going on to programs in Teach for America. They're applying for Fulbrights. They're applying for master's programs in teaching. And so this is an opportunity for them to really rethink how they've thought about education. Many of them have served as tutors before in the United States with American students. And this experience, as they talk about it, completely reshapes how they think about their teaching skills, teaching strategies. And so I know that it's been, for many of them, a wonderful experience in growth, and has allowed them to go on to do some really impressive things in education. On the other side, of course, you have, for both students, of course, just the cultural interaction, getting to know someone in a different culture. I know that for the Georgian students, they appreciate being able to work one-on-one with American students, practicing their English, getting really good personal feedback on their writing in their tutoring sessions, and they become, I know, quite fond of their tutors. But I think it's just also important for them to, in the same way, see education, imagine the concepts that we're talking about, writing, reading, thinking critically, and imagine them from a different perspective, because the class is very much a hybrid. The class is a hybrid of the Georgian education system and the things that are focused on there, and then the American education system by the end. And so this is a really nice opportunity for them to see a world see this world of scholarship and academia beyond their own university. As I think about how this kind of relationship could be expanded between Washington University and universities in Georgia, or specifically in this case, International Black Sea University, I think there are a lot of opportunities for expansion. I could imagine similar courses like the one that I've been running, where students, you have an instructor in the United States working with students in a lecture, and then you have students serving as tutors from the United States to Georgia, offering them help in various subjects, whether it was science or political science. I know that the International Black Sea University focuses heavily on things like public relations. So I think that there are opportunities for an expansion of sort of joint classes, joint international online classes. I think that there certainly could be an expansion of sort of professional training that could be done. I think that there could be work that people could do, perhaps Fulbrights that professors who are interested in the region could apply for, to come over to Georgia and work with some of the professors on training. I know that this is something that professors there have expressed an interest in, additional training, in my case from me while I'm there, on their own writing skills. And so I could see a number of ways where this could be a cultural exchange. And then of course, cultural exchange means going the other direction. So I could imagine as well people from Georgia coming over and talking about their perspectives on international issues, because obviously the perspective from the Caucasus region is quite different from the American region. And I think it's certainly important for Americans, but important for anyone in general, to consider international issues from a well-rounded international perspective. So I think this could be done in kind of, like I said, from an expansion of classes, from an expansion perhaps of training sessions, perhaps through Fulbright. I think there are also opportunities for research and expansion. Georgia is in a very interesting place right now in terms of its, there's all kinds of political transition that's going on. It's a relatively new democracy, and at the same time, from my perspective, I've been fascinated by the educational transformation that's happening right now, and I think that that's a really rich environment for collaboration between researchers, international education researchers at this point. So I can see that as being an excellent area for expansion, for development of a really productive and fascinating relationship. So I could go on for ever and ever, but I think that those are probably my most salient points on the topic. So thank you, and thank you for considering, whoever's watching, thank you for considering promoting and expanding this relationship between the Republic of Georgia and Washington University.